What's up, everybody? Jason from Jason's Exotic Reptiles. I'm at New England Reptile Distributors with Kevin McCurley, the Evil Morph God. We're going to talk about if I were to start a pet store, where would I go? Kevin started a pet store 25 years ago or so, and he certainly has learned some lessons along the way, things that he wished he did differently, things that he could have done right from the start, maybe some things that he maybe did too soon. And I think we want to learn some lessons learned if you were to start a pet store today. So Kevin, if you were to start a pet store right now, today, 2025, what would you do differently? How would you start it? Would you have something as large as this? Would you still have some cool displays like you have downstairs? What would you do to evolve it from, here I am, no experience other than keeping reptiles, and I want to get into a pet store?
Okay, so I own a pet store called Zoo Creatures. I think around 2001 I opened that. And actually I shut down for a couple of years because we lost our lease and I had to move.
Okay.
And all that stuff.
That was Old Nerd, correct?
No, Old Nerd was different than Zoo Creatures.
Okay.
Zoo Creatures is where Home Depot is.
Oh.
So anyways, oh God. I love pet stores. I love going in there. I'm a fish guy. I love to see animals, birds, any single thing in a pet store. I like hermit crabs and all this stuff. And this is all like childlike memories or childhood memories, things that got me into these animals. So at some point, you know, the things like the comfort place, and you want to emulate that and all that. But to do it now, let's say we're 2025, things are very, very, very different. And it's an entirely different environment for keeping animals and selling animals and availability of animals and all that. And the expenses are extraordinary. Remember this, guys, a pet store and the inhabitants and the animals in there are a luxury. When we start having a hard-pressed economy where things are overinflated and things are too expensive and your apartments are expensive and your mortgage and your insurance and your gas and your food and certainly keeping animals is very expensive. Thinking about starting a pet store I would really go, why? What are you trying to do? It's like, I love animals so much, I just want to play with animals, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? If you're going to do it, stay small enough where you or your immediate family, people that are literally that you trust, that are loyal to you, that would be loyal to the hard hours of taking care of animals when money is stressed, when there is no money. But if you're breeding reptiles, breeding bearded dragons, breeding leopard geckos, breeding ball pythons, breeding boas, breeding green basilisks, breeding, all these different things. Yeah, that would be good because you have an immediate source to sell all your wares to at a higher margin compared to if I was just breeding them and then selling them to somebody who has a pet store. And with pet stores, a lot of your money, your day-to-day money is going to come from the feeders.
Okay.
The insects, the frozen rodents, the basic supplies, but live animals are not really riddled with a lot of profit because there's a lot of time and effort and with payroll and taxes and workman's comp and all the crazy things. These are really, really hard to thrive as a pet store unless you have a really good niche. You're in a town where there is nothing to do. There's no really other pet stores. But once you start having a Petco, a PetSmart, something like that, they'll come in and just annihilate you. They'll run at a 5-year loss just to get rid of all their competition. It's not a good profit, to be dead honest.
And I assume there's not a huge margin, a profit margin on even things like the supplies.
No.
A couple dollars per light bulb or something, I would imagine. But you're also competing with a lot of the online suppliers for that stuff. So I think it makes sense that your feeders are right on point where that's where you're going to get the majority of your potential income. So it's almost like if you really have a passion and this is what you want to do, you're kind of buying a job in one sense, right? And probably not the highest paying job you could do if you were to just go out and get a regular job. So but you have to have that passion first. I mean, you got to open up you're there before the store opens. Cleaning, maintaining, caring. You're there after the store closes, cleaning, maintaining, feeding. And then you have to have somebody staffing it, whether it be yourself, an employee, or a family member during all opening hours.
One big thing that's very, very important, if you want to open a pet store, you better have a lot of money. How's the animal trying to get out? You have to have a lot of money to start it. You need to be well funded and you have to have capital because you want to have good caging. You want to have everything because When you have a pet store, your critics are walking in to look at your place and criticize you. They're going to call the authorities. They're going to call animal control. They're going to make up some story. We had animal control come in here one time because there was dead mice all over the floor. Somebody had knocked over a bin of the little furry mice.
Yeah, like feeders?
No, the little fake mouse
Oh,
for cats. It's a cat toy. And they said that there was dead mice all over the floor. But you have to be able to take that, and you have to not be able to take it personal.
If you were to do it again, would you go large? Would you go small, medium size? And then you mentioned caging. Would you have, would you put, obviously starting a pet store takes a lot of money to start up, even just caging. Caging alone, it could be $10,000 to $20,000 just for a small pet store, just to get your caging set up. Would you build custom cages? Would you just buy something?
Well, I build
basic?
cages, so you know what I do. But you want everything as automated as possible. You want to think about your distance between the light and where the animal is. Less means lower electricity, smaller wattage bulb, blah, blah, blah. Better fit for the animal. But then people come in, well, the cage is only this tall. I want the cage this tall. So now I have to use a 300-watt bulb versus I use a 50-watt bulb.
Yeah.
And it's a reality.
So it sounds like customers are the best and worst part of the business, because you need the customers to come in and help support the business, but they also people will just go to your store just to
But it's about perception and how they perceive it. So if we're like in a room here, and I mean the cages are pretty fantastically clean,
yeah.
But something could poop while we're doing it, and like it's so unrealistic. These are animals. Like you have a cat, you have beautiful cats, but you have a litter box. You have dogs, you have a front lawn, you have a back lawn, blah, 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 blah. But we don't want to live in these realities. We don't want to live in the 360. We only want to live in 27 degrees, 90 degrees. And, in the whole day of social media, we're like snapshots.
Yeah.
Ideas.
There's a dirty cage. Somebody takes a picture. That animal could have just done that, but now that's permanently posted as a review on your pet store. Do you think that doing things like birthday parties and stuff,
so being an animal educator, an animal ambassador for like you're talking about things that live in a rainforest, that live in a desert, in some tropical forest. And you're bringing that into people's lives. If you go to do demos, so you're taking your animal collection, you're going there, and you have this whole repertoire talking about the interesting points about that animal, and then why it's important, how to get people to think, because you spark an interest in those animals, and maybe an interest in where those animals come from, and to preserve an environment, that these animals deserve the right to live in their environments too. Don't, raise the forest and build condos and destroy the rainforest or kill the coral reef. And you want to get people thinking about that. And that's one thing that I've always been a huge proponent of pets. Pets cause people to think about animals. And if you don't think about it and you don't touch it and you don't interact with it, you don't value it. Pets, so when you have pet ball pythons and pet boas and bearded dragons, at some point you're going to start introducing these animals to somebody else, and you're going to enlighten somebody. You're going to spark an interest, and you might have a really positive thing. So if you're an educator or you're just a pet keeper, you're keeping these animals important and you're keeping them relevant. And that, even if you don't agree with a lot of different things, keeping of pets really does a lot of positive things. And we have, I suffer from depression, and we have like sometimes your sanctuary, and I know you guys know what I'm talking about. You come home, you go into your little spare bedroom, or you go into your bedroom where you have 5 animals, you have 25 animals, whatever you have, and you find solace and you find comfort in the interacting, because all your life's problems might be off-boarded for minutes, hopefully hours or days, and you can lose yourself in your animals, because these animals are truly remarkable. They're wonderful. They're sensical to me just to keep, because they're important, and you need to have something that depends on you depend on, and it can't just necessarily be a dog or a cat. I might find great solace in a snake or a leopard gecko or whatever, and I can understand that, and I always try to speak with the hobbyist mindset and also the hobbyist values.
Well, you've been doing this for 20 years. There's certainly pros and cons, and maybe as time evolves, there's more cons than pros. But you still have this awesome pet store, And to me, I mean, New England Reptile Distributors is something that got me just passionately about reptiles. Is you'd come up here, and it was just this incredible store that you saw these amazing animals, some of which I will never or could never keep. I just don't have the means for it. So I think, from this talk, it sounds like that's actually what keeps you driving in the pet store, is that you are changing people's lives. Even if you just have some simple bearded dragons or ball pythons, you don't need the most exotic animals. But something that New England Reptile and Zoo Creatures has is that you guys have, I mean, there's just incredible enclosures downstairs, and you get people coming here that just are fascinated by some of the stuff that you have, and you touch people's lives in that sense. So is that what keeps you with a pet store?
Yeah, I mean, now that it's open, it's very hard to shut it, but I'm definitely been downsizing a lot. There's less animals downstairs. I'm downsizing, maybe do bigger enclosures, try to do lots of education, but can you actually make much money doing education? That's a tough one because everything is very, very hard. My costs are huge.
Yeah.
And but I used to, I love fish, and I pretty much have gotten rid of almost all my fish now because it's a huge set of losses.
Yeah.
Doing fish and the overhead of fish and things that could go bad and all that stuff like that. So ultimately, it would be great to have like a little serpentarium. Maybe people pay $5, $10, whatever, to come in, be educated, whatever. I don't really know. I'm in this malleable point of my existence where I'm trying to figure things out, but definitely downsizing because of my incredible overhead. It's very painful because I'm not good with the capacity of giving up and letting go. I'm always forward thinker, always conquer, do things, be progressive minded, the new thing. And now I basically have to retreat. This is all retreating, and it hurts me. It mentally hurts me a lot, and I'm very slow at doing this because my emotions are involved.
We'll call it refocusing. Is you kind of, over these 20 years, you've learned that a facility like this is a lot, and especially as expenses go up, it's a lot to maintain. It's a lot to keep a facility like this. Fortunately, you have the breeding facility, which feeds the pet store as well, and is its own business, and it actually is its own business. This is New England Reptile Distributors, and that is Zoo Creatures. Could you have done Zoo Creatures without New England Reptile Distributors?
I definitely needed New England Reptiles because I breed a lot of stuff, and I would put stuff downstairs, and then we do tours. Like tours just take off. Everybody, so you get the retail storefront. But if I was just New England Reptile, people would be like knocking on my door, like we're not even open to the public, only by like appointment and stuff like that. So the downstairs will sometimes absorb that interest, and so they're two separate things, but they in tandem. And I really would have a hard time doing it without each other, for sure, I would think. At least for my formula to be successful.
I mean, if you look at this, like each one of these rooms may have $1 million worth of animals in them. I mean, you have some really high-end, expensive animals. Just looking at the room we were just in, it's a very elaborate emerald tree boa room, and those are not inexpensive animals. So maybe it's not $1 million, but you have a lot of money. But Kevin's not driving a Lamborghini either, or a Rolls Royce. Because, his passion is reptiles, and I think that's kind of, if you're going to start a pet store, maybe this is the end result, is if you're going to start a pet store, it has to start with the passion for the animals, and then you have to make the realization that it is not something that you're going to generally, I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions to this, but the vast majority of pet stores are not going to make you rich. You are getting yourself a job in a passionate area of your life, and you get enjoyment through educating people and watching people walk out of the store with that ferret that you made $10 on, and you can help them with their future questions, and maybe that's where it needs to start. But I think I don't know, that could be the end result of this, is if you're going to start a pet store, it has to come from passion with the business as a second component. It is a business, so you need to be business minded and consider things like electric bills, caging expenses, the startup costs it's going to take you to get into this, your suppliers. How are you going to get these animals? How are you going to get the feeders? How are you going to get the supplies? So I don't think this is a video. I hope it doesn't discourage those people who want to start a pet store, but I do hope it makes you think a little bit of reality of what's involved in starting a pet store. I hope you guys learned something from this, and it makes you rethink of, if you're going to do this, how should you start? Where should you invest your time and money? If you have not subscribed, make sure you check out New England Reptile Distributors' YouTube page. They have awesome videos, and he has a ton more subscribers than I do. But until next video, let's keep it moving.
Say goodbye.